You're watching Telecom TV from IoT Solutions World Congress in Barcelona. And I'm joined now by Brian Chi, who is General Manager Cloud Product Strategy at Red Hat. Brian, thanks for joining us on Telecom TV. Now, Red Hat is well known for its open source software implementations for enterprise IT and its cloud deployments. But how does IoT fit into the picture?
IoT is a very strong market opportunity, and we've been doing a lot of work with many partners and customers. If you take a look at the IoT space, there's three broad categories of solutions that people are implementing. There's stuff in the back-end data centers where Red Hat has always been strong, but this is where you do all the long-term business processing, data analytics, connectivity to your business. Then as you move closer to the edge, a lot of people are starting to deploy these smart gateway devices, which provide a lot of local connectivity. And our goal is to be able to project a lot of that power from the data center all the way to the edge devices. So we're working with many of our partners like Eurotech to implement our complete software stack to power a lot of these gateways, as well as even onto the edge devices, being able to run everything from the operating systems across that to providing connectivity for these smart devices as they come into your network. So being able to provide a lot of the software building blocks that people can then go ahead and build their IoT solutions on top of.
Now, here at the forum, you mentioned three trends that were shaping IoT. The first one being the consumerization of IT.
Yeah, so the first trend is you start to see the consumerization of IT. And this is perhaps most notable when you start taking a look at the adoption of mobile technologies and how that's had a huge impact on how people expect their applications to behave. But it also has huge impact on everything in terms of, well, what is the architecture around the applications? How quickly do you need to update them? What's the user experience? They become much more responsive versus very transactional in nature. That has huge impacts in terms of everything from what is the back-end infrastructure for your applications, all the way to what is the architecture of the workloads themselves. And when you start thinking about the way that it shapes into the IoT space, take a look at mobile, for example, and now everyone's basically carrying a smart device around with them, and how does that start to engage in the IoT market? But all these trends that are coming from the consumerization of IT has a big impact on IoT.
You also talked in your presentation about the digitization of OT.
Second big trend is the digitization of OT, of operations technologies. And this is because, for a long time, we could go ahead and deploy devices out in the field. We can manage them very statically. We'd have to update them every 15 years or something like that. So we could have very long lead times. And as things start to become digital and connected, that no longer works. So for example, one of our big success stories at Red Hat has been working with the railroad industry. We helped implement a positive train control system in the US, where if a railroad was coming in too quickly to a station, you can send a remote control signal to the train to stop and prevent an accident, which is a fantastic system, except the railroads have been having hard time implementing it fast enough. So unfortunately, they've had to extend the deadlines for implementing the national rollout of PTC. And in the meantime, we've continued to have train accidents. And so this old way of being able to implement things at a certain scale and a certain speed, when you start moving with digital connectivity, it really changes the way that you have to start thinking about the speed and scale at which you deliver these technologies.
And what about the third trend, IoT convergence?
With consumerization of IT and then the digitization of OT, there's a lot of things that are starting to bridge these two worlds together. So both of them, consumerization and digitization, is moving the lead times for how do you develop applications much closer together. So how do you get things out in a matter of weeks, in a matter of days, compared to the long lead times we could afford before. If you take a look at, for example, the computing power available to IT and OT now, when you take a look at public cloud, which has only been around for about 10 years, a little Raspberry Pi today is more powerful than the computing power you could get in the public cloud just 10 years ago. And so being able to move all that software complexity towards the edge is another big trend that's coming. And so one of the things we've been seeing then is the ability to drive common software building blocks from the data center all the way to the edge. And this is going back to one of your earlier questions, is where again, we see a lot of Red Hat's strengths coming in. How do you bring a lot of those enterprise capabilities around security, around being able to update, around functionality that lives in the data center, but now bring that consistently all the way to gateways and then edge devices?
How can enterprise customers ensure integrity across the life cycle of IoT solutions?
Solution lifecycle for us begins from when the first line of code was created and how do you make sure that is secure and what you need it to be, all the way to when it gets deployed into production, whether in your data center or in the device. So, for example, how do you make sure that there's no security vulnerability across that? If there is one, how do you go ahead and deal with the lifecycle that to patch it and update it? Especially becomes complex when you're dealing with devices in the field. So what is the supporting infrastructure and mechanism to be able to manage and operate these different gateways and devices consistently as you do your data center? This is one of the big problems that we've been working with many of our customers to solve.
Brian, thank you very much indeed.